use courage and bravery and willpower and all that stuff that is so important. And then at a certain point in the story, they have to forget all that and give themselves over completely to something that's more powerful, larger, invisible. They have to become just a pure aperture to some great power to work through them. When you put that together, when you put willpower and courage and determination together with vulnerability and openness to the great forces in life, then you have a true hero or heroine's journey. Does that make some sense? Yeah. One snippet I like from film. Is people familiar with the Star Wars?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, a lot of people are. There's a certain scene where Luke Skywalker is flying his space jet, and he has to try to drop a bomb into the Death Star. Like all this pacifist literature we're getting into. But it's an incredibly difficult task. And at this point, Luke Skywalker is a Jedi Knight. I mean, he is trained. He knows everything about everything. He knows how to fly this thing. He knows how to do everything right. He's got all the skill. He has all the courage. He has all the tenacity. And at a certain point, he just can't do it. He just can't do what he's supposed to do. And does anybody remember that particular scene? Yeah? And what happens in that scene? Exactly. All of a sudden, and this is often how it is, you know, in fairy tales, and I think as in life, because they're a good mirror for life. At a certain point, he realizes that as hard as he's been trying everything he can do, he can't do it. And sometimes that's a moment in a heroic journey where you just have to stop. And he does. And in stopping and saying, I can't do this, by kind of giving over, all of a sudden he hears this voice that says, Luke, trust the Force. Does anybody remember the next step? He does?
He turns on the computer.
Exactly. He has to flick off all the little computer, all the high-tech stuff, right? So it's interesting. All this stuff that has served him, we can't say, oh, we just get rid of computers, then we'll know. No. All this stuff served him. All this stuff helped to get him to this point. But at a certain point, that very thing that served him, that brought him this far, is going to be in his way. So he flips all that stuff off. And as he does that, he knows exactly what to do. He becomes, you might say, the empty vessel. As Chuang-Tzu used to say, he becomes the uncarved block. He's just available. And because he's just available, all of a sudden the Force comes right through him and uses every bit of skill he has in a totally new way. And of course he does exactly what he needs to do. He blows up the Death Star. Yay! And at the end, what I love is that he realizes that, hey, I did it! Hey, I really didn't do it, did I? And both things are true. So that's in part the hero's journey. At the end of the hero's journey, somebody says, my God, I'm more than I've ever been. And on the other hand, you're so humble because you realize that, in fact, it was this great power that's available to us all that actually did the job. So, a little bit of an introduction to kind of where we're going. The hero's journey, the story of ascent. Let's see. Could someone give me a hand with the story? A gentleman to help out? Bruce, I'm going to have somebody else help with the story, okay? But you'll be... Oh, I hate to call in volunteers. All right, yes! David.
It's so difficult to find something.
I know. If you want the sunglasses, that's fine. Oh, let's see. Okay, we're at 10:15 and we have to stop at 10:30, correct? Okay.
So this will be the Reader's Digest version.
Can we go 5 minutes over? Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, good. We won't get through the whole story. We'll get through most of it. Let's see now. David, you choose another gentleman to help you out since you were so late. I knew this was going to be trouble.
It's
the next best thing to Bruce.
Well, this is a story from Russia. They say long, long ago. Long ago, long before...
Czars.
Well, actually, it was during the time of the Tsar. But the story, of course, it has a Tsar, but it's older than that because, as I often say, this is a story about once upon a time. Before they put time on walls, on clocks, before they divided time up into 12 hours, before people were doing so much time. When more people had time. In that time, that's where this story is from. And they say, in that time, there was a Tsar who was as powerful as he was wicked. But in his service there was a great and a noble, a loyal and a brave hunter. That's me. In the service of the hunter, there was an extremely powerful and loyal horse. Now the horse had eyes of fire, hooves of iron, and an enormous and courageous heart beating in a powerful chest. Now one day the hunter did as he often did. He leapt upon the horse. Let the audience use their imagination here. Let the audience use their imagination. It'll be much more effective. Just put a hand on his shoulder there. There we go, there we go. Excellent. Ready? This is your part. And they rode across the green. And they rode beneath the wide Russian sky. And they rode into the deep, 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 and deep, deep, dark Russian woods. And there they stopped. And in the middle of the woods, the hunter noticed something. And the hunter said, okay, now guys, I'm the storyteller. The hunter said, these woods are too quiet. Something must be wrong. No birds are singing. No animals moving. And then hunter and horse, they noticed why these woods were so quiet. They saw the reason why the woods were so silent. And the hunter looked down, and there he saw on the forest floor something which filled him with wonder and with a little bit of fear, with awe. There he saw something. It was so beautiful. It was an enormous, a golden, glowing feather. It was about 2 feet long. Wow. And he knew right away that that feather had fallen not long ago from the breast of the firebird. Now, it was very rare for the firebird to lose such a feather. Rarer still for it to fall upon the earth. And rarer still for someone to find it there. The hunter had never seen anything so beautiful. And he knew that he couldn't keep his hands from it. He leapt off his horse, and just as he was about to pick up the feather, his horse, who was very, very smart, and being in a fairy tale, could speak.
How are you doing?
If you pick up that feather, you'll know the meaning of trouble.
Oh. But the hunter, he said, my horse.
Wrong, my horse. Is that right? If I pick up this feather and bring it to the Tsar, I'll know the meaning of a big reward.
The hunter picked up the feather, which looked a lot like Bruce's hat. He took the feather. He leapt upon the horse. This is your part now, ready? And they rode across the green earth, beneath the wide sky, faster and farther and farther and faster. And the doors of the courtyard opened, and the people cried, "The hunter returns! The hunter returns!" Now the hunter, he came into the palace, which was right here. And he bowed low before the Tsar, which is me. Not bad, not bad. We'll work on that this week. And the hunter, he presented to the Tsar. Oh, hunter, this is what I think it is. Is that the golden feather of a firebird? Never has a golden feather of a firebird been brought to a Tsar. You have done well. You have done very well. But it was then that the Tsar's wisest advisors came forward. Donatella, Donna, and Reverend Katie Stein. You can stay right there. And they said to the Tsar, for the Tsar's ears only, they said,
"That one feather is worth half your kingdom."
That's right. Just one feather worth half my kingdom. And then they told the Tsar,
if you had the whole Firebird, you'd be the richest Firebird in the world.
Richest czar in the world. We'll work on those lines. But wise advisors, tell me now, how could I possibly get the entire Firebird?
Make the hunter bring it to you.
Ah, wonderful idea. Oh, Hunter!
I got a feeling here.
Hunter! No, Hunter, let me tell you. I'm thinking. No, you haven't heard this yet because it was for my ears only.
All right.
Hunter, I'm thinking.
Where was I?
You were down there. David, all our rehearsing is paying off.
Rehearsing this all my life. It feels so natural.
Hunter, I'm thinking. Since you could bring me this feather, this measly little feather, I'm thinking you could bring me the entire Firebird. Yes, in fact, I'm thinking that if you do not do this by tomorrow at this time, your handsome head will no longer sit upon those broad shoulders of yours. Go, bring me the Firebird. Now, he went out to the Firebird, and of course, he was weeping. He had been betrayed. Can you weep? Help him weep. Yes, and as often happens in fairy tales, as in life, when there's a true sign of emotion, good information is soon to follow. Why are you weeping? Why are you weeping? I have to get the Firebird, or lose my head. I told you. If you picked up the feather, you had no trouble. Now do what I tell you. The trouble is before us. It is not now. We have a little time. Get the finest grain, the strongest rope, and come back to me. And the hunter got, what did he get?
The finest grain
And the
strongest rope.
And he came back to the
Horse.
He leapt upon the horse. There wasn't much time, and they flew across the greenery, beneath the wide sky. Faster and farther and farther and faster they rode. And they stopped. And there they were, at an enormous open field. It was the widest field in all of Russia. And by the light of the moon, the hunter took the finest golden grain and he scattered it out all across the field here. He worked all night long scattering grain. By the light of the moon, he worked all night. He worked scattering golden grain across the widest field in all of Russia. And in the morning, just as the moon set and the sun was rising, the hunter hid over here behind the brush, which looked like a fiberglass chair. And the hunter was grazing at the edge of the field as the sun rose. Horse! What did I say? Okay. He was grazing at the edge of the field. And then... But you want to, it's like the cherries, you want to wash that off. The sun began to rise, and there came the sound of mighty rushing wings. And then from behind the sun came the Firebird herself. Can you come back? Higher and higher she flew. Can you fly way up there? Can you stand up there, Firebird? She was a beautiful bird. Higher and higher. And she flew in wide circles around the earth. But, of course, she was a bird. She was an animal. And she was hungry. And as she flew across the earth, she saw a sight which she had never seen before. There now, the sun was reflecting on an entire field of the finest golden grain. Light was bouncing here and there through the sky. And she said,
"Is that golden grain? Is that my favorite food?"
and she flew a little lower and she said,
"It is my favorite food. And I'm a Firebird. And a hungry one."
and the great Firebird flew down and down and down upon the field. And there she began to gobble up the finest grain she had ever eaten. And it tasted so good that she barely noticed that there was a horse grazing at the edge of the field. But the Firebird, she said,
There's no danger. From an old horse to a swift bird.
But that horse, he was as cunning as he was powerful. He was as patient as he was courageous. And he was able to graze so slowly that the Firebird scarcely noticed that right now he was grazing right beside her. And he was able to reach out with an iron hoof. But because he was as gentle as he was powerful, he was able to lightly pin down one of the wings of the bird, who flopped wildly around with the other wing.
Oh,
Give me my life.
give me my life.
Hunter, come now.
The hunter leapt from behind the bush, and he took the rope and wrapped it once, twice, 3 times, not around the neck, however. And now gently he lifted the Firebird upon the horse. This is our part, and they rode across the green earth beneath the wide sky. Father and pastor, and the doors of the courtyard opened, and the people cried, "The hunter returned!" And the palace doors opened, and the hunter came into the palace with the Firebird. Now the wings of the bird, the flames of the bird illuminated the entire palace. Never had the palace looked so beautiful. The glow on people's faces from the magnificent Firebird's wings. No one had ever seen anything so remarkable, so inspiring, and so lovely. But the Tsar, he said, "Hunter, you have done well. Never has a Firebird been brought to a Tsar. Now take that Firebird and put her over there in that golden cage, where she will remain in my courtyard for the rest of her days." And the Tsar took the Firebird, which had always been free. The Tsar took the Firebird.
Hunter.
Well, right, but it was under the Tsar's command. Thank you. The hunter, under the command of the Tsar, took the Firebird and put it in a golden cage in the courtyard. That bird which had always been free for all the people to see. And then, after the Firebird was locked carefully in the golden cage, the wise advisors stepped forward. And they said to the Tsar,
If he can bring you the Firebird, he could bring you Princess Vasilisa.
"The Princess Vasilisa? The only princess I've ever wanted to meet or marry, that Princess Vasilisa? The one who lives at the edge of the world, that Princess Vasilisa? And from there at the edge of the ocean, that Princess Vasilisa? I thought so. Thank you. Oh, Hunter! Hunter, I'm thinking since you could bring me a little Firebird, you could bring me Princess Vasilisa. Now, there's one small problem. Well, maybe 2. She happens to live at the edge of the world. And from there you must go to the edge of the ocean. So I know you will need time. I believe 3 days should be sufficient. And if you do not return in that amount of time, you will find that your handsome head will no longer sit upon your... Go, bring me the Firebird. He went to the horse, and of course he was... I'm sorry, bring me the princess. Bring me a new storyteller. Bring me the princess. He went to the horse, and he was weeping. And of course, the horse inquired, "Why do you weep?"
Why do you weep?
The hunter explained,
I have to go and get the princess, or my head will not rest on my broad shoulders any longer.
and the horse said,
I told you. You picked up the feather. You had no trouble. The trouble is before us. It is not now. Do what I tell you.
Now, the horse told the hunter to get several things. See if you can remember exactly what the hunter had to get.
To the oldest wine, the finest food, a silk tent, and a harp of the strong one. Come back to me.
And, of course, the hunter had to go to the Tsar to get those things. What are you doing here? I thought you were looking for the princess. Enough bowing. What do you want? What do you want?
The finest wine.
The oldest wine.
You want my oldest wine?
Finest food.
How old are you, young man? All right, my oldest wine from the Okanagan Valley. Don't drink and drive that crazy horse. What else do you need?
Finest food.
Finest food? You want my finest
You
food?
want a princess?
What do you like? What should we give him?
Pheasant eyes.
What's that?
Pheasant eyes.
Pheasant eyes. Pheasant eyes. Here you are. She'll love that. Yes. Anything else? Caviar. What's that? Okanagan cherries. Wash them first. All right. Anything else? Cheese. Always loved it. Crackers. Pomegranate. Nice. Very nice. Chicken. Caviar. Salmon. Yes. All of those things. Yes. Rack of lamb. Good. I think she's got enough food. Good. Enough food. Okay, now, what else do you need? You need something else? Silk.
Silk and tin.
It has to be silk. You're lucky REI had a sale. Go, bring me the princess. One more thing? Ah, picking up music. Wonderful. The harp does sound good. Hot. Go. Bring me that princess. With all of those things, he jumped upon the horse. Ready? They rode across the green earth, beneath the wide sky. It was a long journey. They had to ride very fast. They came to the edge of the world and they stopped. There, the hunter looked out and he saw something which filled him with amazement. There before him. And we will find out exactly what that is tomorrow if you come back to this tent. He's going to hand to the hunter. Guys and prizes, and we'll finish the story tomorrow. And we have, we do have our discussion questions.
Stokes is the best part.
Okay. Fantastic. That is a lot. Nobody said storytelling was going to be easy. Now, feel free to do with these questions what you would like. They're to inspire you, so if they raise other questions that you would like to bring, that's fine. But here are several to start. First off, I'd like to know just generally, how do stories and storytelling currently influence your life? It doesn't need to be storytelling like this, but for example, I just read a story. I love to read history. I read a story about the Dust Bowl in the United States in the 1930s. Gave me a completely different perspective on American history. So one of the ways storytelling plays a part of my life is reading history. I love to read history. Movies play an important part of my life also. My dad was a storyteller. So these are just some ways that storytelling, whatever that means to you, but how does storytelling currently play a part in your life? And you might also ask, how did it play a part in the past? What role did stories and storytellers have in your life? Perhaps your father, grandfather, grandmother, or aunt was a storyteller. And if you'd also like to just share a story that recently touched you, maybe something that's current with you, a movie you saw, a book you read, a story you just heard about a firebird or something. And then something specific about this particular story that we're in right now. I'd like you to consider, what does the golden feather mean to you? This could be something in your life that was bright, was beautiful, that it was so lovely you just couldn't keep your hands off it, or you couldn't keep away from it, you had to have it. And this could be something like, you got a new job, or you fall in love, or there's just sometimes things happen that come along, and you have to make a decision. Will I go with it? Will I not go with it? And sometimes you walk away from it. Sometimes you pick it up. But what have been experiences of golden feathers in your life? And with these discussions, there's no right or wrong way to do this. Just whatever comes up for you. Just speak to it. And so take a look at the golden feather. What does it mean to you? And then another thing too, just more general, of what part of the story, of either the bubble story or the rabbi story or the firebird story, what part did you connect with at all? If that would help you out too. Any part of any of the stories that you said, oh, that interested me, that idea, or I saw that scene vividly, or I thought that character was kind of interesting. So those are three things to start with. Is that enough for a lift off anyway? Okay, great. Good, thank you. Have a good morning, and good groups. Thank you. Oh, before we go.
So we have about 10 minutes.
You know where you're going to go if you let yourself get into a good mistake. Great song, great story. Thanks, Julia, for the story. She's still here? Yes. Julia, thank you. Would you like to hear a story?
Yeah.